At the beginning of the movie we are shown two teenagers who are having coffee together. Because it is late at night the store manager tells them to go home, but instead of obeying they scold the store manager. There was a woman named Soan. Soan then said that small children like them deserve to be beaten using pipes until they are crushed. Soan then threatened to break their legs to be used as table legs if they did not leave at that time, and in the end the two of them then left from there. The store manager then said that judging from his behavior, Soan did not look like she was in his 20s. Soan then confirmed the store manager's words and said that this year Soan would be 40 years old. Hearing this, the store manager then laughed out loud and thought Soan was joking. Soan then remembers her past. We flash back to Soan's past. On December 31, 1999, at that time Soan was waiting for her friend named Minji. When they were going to enjoy the night of the turn of 1999 to 2000, they were very happy because in 2000 they would be 20 years old, but at that time suddenly Minji was called by her boyfriend and the two of them then chatted. While Soan was waiting for Minji to call, suddenly an old woman pulled Soan's hand. The old woman then asked Soan's age. Soan then replied that in an hour she would be 20 years old. The old woman then asked Soan to buy her gum, but Soan refused on the grounds that she had no money. The old woman continued to force Soan to buy her gum, until the gum fell because Soan accidentally pushed the woman. The old woman was angry and said she would make Soan 20 years old forever. Soan, who heard this, was even happy and hoped that the woman could do it, because according to Soan she would continue to be happy if she lived at the age of 20 forever. When Soan left, the old woman then recited a spell and cursed Soan to live for 20 years forever. Long story short, after that Soan and Minji then counted down to welcome the year 2000. After successfully celebrating the turn of the new year they then drank together with Minji's lover named Taegyuk, and at that time Taegyuk introduced Soan to his friend named Yongsok, and told since the meeting they got closer and then the two of them were dating. Yongsok was Soan's first love. They were always together until the end of December 2000, when it was the last night of December, and at that time they were also waiting for the New Year's Eve. Yongsok then went to buy drinks and at that time the radio announced that it would soon be 2001. The clock showed 12 o'clock at night and heard the radio counting down the turn of the year. After the count was over, 2001 arrived. Long story short, it shows Yongsok's apartment that the police arrived, and it turns out that Yongsok reported Soan to the police for entering people's homes without permission. At that time Minji and Taegyuk came. They then asked what was going on. They surprisingly mentioned Soan as a stalker, and it turned out that at that time they all did not recognize Soan's figure and like people who lost their memories of Soan. The police then asked for Soan's ID card and when checked, Soan was not registered as a Korean resident. When the police took out a candy from his pocket, Soan immediately remembered the old woman who had threatened to curse Soan to stay 20 years old forever. The scene then shows Soan who has returned to her house. Soan is very surprised because in her family photo Soan is not there, and it turns out that her mother also does not recognize her. Soan feels very sad considering that all her friends and family no longer recognize her. Soan is very sad because her life has changed 180 degrees. Even though the world continues to rotate and change, Soan will continue to be 20 years old forever. Soan feels regretful that she didn't buy the old lady's candy, and it's her past that keeps her stuck at 20 years old forever. Back to the present. Before going home, Soan saw the store manager putting up a job advertisement in a resort company. Soan was surprised because at that time she saw the old woman or witch who cursed her in the advertisement leaflet. Then the next day Soan immediately came to the resort to find the witch who cursed her, when suddenly the witch Soan was looking for passed behind her. Soan, who saw her, immediately chased her, but unfortunately Soan failed because at that time she actually bumped into a man named Kong Yun, who at first glance looked very similar to Yongsok. Kong Yun then took Soan into the treatment room and was about to treat Soan's wound. Kong Yun also apologized and told Soan that the staff in the treatment room was away, so Kong Yun asked Soan to wait so that Soan could be treated, but Soan said that she only needed a patch and asked Kong Yun to help her put the patch on. While outside, Soan looked at the job advertisement again, and it was true that the resort was currently in need of new employees, so the next day Soan immediately applied for a job and immediately attended a job interview session. What was Soan's surprise when she found out that the person interviewing her was Minji, her old friend who has now lost her memory. Minji then said that the clothes worn by Soan were very popular in her day. Soan then replied and said she really liked the classic style and didn't like today's style. Minji then told Soan that their company had a YouTube channel managed by the marketing team, Minji then asked Soan to show how Soan could attract the current generation to like, comment and subscribe to their company's YouTube channel. Hearing this, Soan felt confused, because it turned out that even though she was 20 years old, Soan did not keep up with the times and lacked understanding of technology. Minji then asked another question. Minji asked how Soan responded to people who stopped subscribing to the company's YouTube channel. Again, Soan could not answer the question from Minji. Because Soan could not answer, in the end Minji told Soan to come out, but before leaving Soan said that she had prepared something that Minji might like. Soan then turned on techno music on her cell phone and immediately danced in front of Minji, and it turned out that in the past Minji and Soan always danced together while listening to techno music, and it made Minji curious about Soan's figure. At that time a man named Sangwok was with the other interviewers. They smiled at seeing Soan dance. After that Minji then asked what Soan was doing. Soan did not answer. Minji then told Soan to get out of there. Upon arriving at her home, Soan felt very sad, because the friend she loved no longer recognized her and even dumped her. While looking at a mirror, Soan remembered her past. Initially Soan thought living with a 20-year-old face forever was a fun thing because she thought she would continue to be beautiful forever. At first Soan enjoyed and considered it a blessing, but the more Soan lived life the more she felt lonely, because every turn of the year the memories of others who recognized her would disappear, and the people she knew before would not recognize her anymore. Although sad, Soan must always bear her loneliness alone, and only her diary can cure her loneliness to remember all her past. While in a different place, in her study Minji turned on techno music while shaking her body and seemed to be remembering her past. Long story short, a few days later Soan came back to the resort, and it turned out that Soan passed the internship recruitment in the resort's marketing team. On her first day of work Soan fell asleep until she dreamed. Soan dreamed that she disappeared from this world forever. Next to her work desk there was Kang Yun. He saw Soan who fell asleep while drooling. Minji who saw Soan like that then called her. Minji then told Soan the reason she had accepted Soan to work at this resort was because Soan was unique. Minji hoped that Soan could also work well and not make mistakes again. Soan who heard it felt very happy. Short story: in the afternoon during a break, Soan who was sitting in a cafe was visited by Sangwok who introduced himself as a teammate in the marketing section. At that time Kang Yun was seen passing in front of them. Sangwok then immediately invited Kang Yun to join, but Kang Yun looked indifferent and left them. Sangwok then told Soan that Kang Yun was a good person, even though he looked like a very cold person. In the afternoon when Soan was mopping the office floor, Kang Yun approached Soan and told Soan to finish it quickly, because it would endanger other people who would pass that way. When Kang Yun was about to leave and take a step, Kang Yun suddenly slipped and Kang Yun was in pain. Instead of helping, Soan looked at Kang Yun's face, which at first glance was very similar to Yongsok's first love. Later that night, her dorm mate named Young showed her the room where Soan lived during the resort, and it turned out that they were both 20 years old and they were very happy when they found out. Soon a man named Soan who was also 20 years old appeared. After a brief introduction they then went to a shop to drink together. While drinking, Soan asked if the two of them were dating or not. They then admitted that they were just friends. Shortly after that Sangwok and Kang Yun also drank at the shop. Here Kang Yun forbade Sangwok to join them. Soan and Young who saw them sitting together thought that they were both same-sex lovers, because Sangwok and Kang Yun always drank together. Young then told Soan that there were rumors that Sangwok and Kang Yun were dating. Soan was surprised. He then said that it was appropriate for Kang Yun to be cold to women because it turned out that Kang Yun was abnormal. Young also added that he once tried to flirt with Kang Yun, but failed because Kang Yun was very cold as snow. After drinking they then went home. In a drunken state Soan then drove Young home first and told Soan to wait for him for a while Soan was waiting for Kang Yun to come. But at that time in Soan's eyes in front of him saw Yongsok's face. Soan then said that at this time she really missed him very much. The scene suddenly changed to show the next morning. After Soan opened her eyes, Soan immediately shouted. Soan then rushed to go downstairs. There she met Sangwok who was preparing her breakfast and Sangwok then invited Soan to have breakfast together. Sangwok then told that last night he carried Soan to his house, and on the way Soan vomited on his back. Hearing that Soan was embarrassed and immediately apologized to Sangwok. Soan also thanked them both. Here innocently Soan even said that he was very supportive of the love relationship between Sangwok and Kang Yun. After Soan left Sangwok and Kang Yun felt confused, and felt strange why there was gossip about them dating even though they were not LGBT. Sangwok then said that it could all happen because Kang Yun's attitude is very cold to women, making people definitely think Kang Yun is a man lover. Sangwok then advised Kang Yun not to be too cold to women. In the afternoon, Soan accidentally met Kang Yun again in a library. Here Kang Yun, who liked comics, mocked and said that Soan was very old school because Soan liked classic novels. When he came out of the library, Soan saw a woman who looked like the witch he was looking for. Soan immediately approached her, but it turned out that the woman was not the witch she meant. Soan then looked back at the advertising poster with the witch's photo, and wondered to herself where the witch was, when suddenly Kang Yun asked if Soan was looking for a witch. Soan was surprised to hear it. Kang Yun then told her that the night Soan got drunk, Soan kept calling Kang Yun as Yongsok. Soan then said that if it weren't for the witch she would have become a famous writer, and would even be a guest star on television shows. Soan was also determined to find the witch. Soan then showed Kang Yun the flyer advertising the resort, and asked if Kang Yun had ever seen the witch, but Kang Yun did not recognize her and had never seen her. Meanwhile, Minji was pensive alone. She remembered her conversation with her boss, who told her that Minji failed to be promoted, and the one who would be promoted was Manager Choi, when suddenly her scarf flew and was taken by the witch. The witch said that it seemed that Minji was in need of help. The witch then said that she could help Minji, but on condition that Minji had to buy her gum. Later at her desk, Minji looked at the gum she had bought from the witch, when her boss told Minji that Manager Choi had been unavailable since yesterday and could not be contacted. A few days later, news spread about a resort employee who disappeared, and was found dead, and it was known that the dead employee was Manager Choi. Minji then felt that the death of Manager Choi must be due to her fault, and because Manager Choi was dead, Minji would then be promoted to replace Manager Choi's position. Then when Soan gave a report to Minji, Soan saw Minji's face that looked like she was thinking a lot, even though Minji would soon be promoted. But suddenly the file fell and made the items on Minji's desk fall. At that time, Soan saw the typical witch's gum that was there. She was surprised and immediately asked if Minji bought it from the witch. Soan then asked where the witch was, but that made Minji become scared. At that time Sangwok and Kang Yun also came. Soan then told Kang Yun that Minji had met the witch. Besides that, Soan also found the witch's hat accessories. The next morning Minji did not come to work. Eong told Soan that Minji submitted a resignation letter, told Minji felt guilty about what happened to Manager Choi, but their boss did not accept the resignation of Minji and would wait for Minji to return to work. Soan then met Minji. Soan knew that Minji must be very sad right now. Soan knew that Minji would definitely sit in the garden in front of her house. Minji then asked who Soan really was. Soan felt bored to explain it because it turned out that every year changed. Soan always met Minji and explained who Soan really was to Minji. Even Soan always comforted Minji when Minji was stressed about work. Soan has always been by Minji's side for 20 years, but every year Minji always asks if she recognizes her or not, and Soan is always bored to explain about herself. Hearing that Minji was getting confused, Soan then mentioned the name of Minji's boyfriend. Soan also mentioned Minji's teacher at school. Minji then asked again whether they really knew each other before or not, because after hearing Soan's words Minji felt that Soan must be her friend, but Minji felt strange if Minji thought Soan was her friend because Soan didn't look old. Soan then tells Minji that her life is not fun because everyone can't remember about her. Even Soan feels very sad because Minji can't remember if the two of them were actually once close friends, and the memory of when they always danced and sang together is only Soan who remembers it. Even though Minji looks like she's confused, Soan then hugs Minji and says if she misses her very much. Soan then tells Minji that Manager Choi's death was not Minji's fault. Soan says Minji only bought gum from the witch and didn't know anything bad would happen to Manager Choi. Minji then said that the woman the witch referred to always came to the resort and people called her auntie, but Minji didn't know where the witch lived. At that time Soan received a message from Sangwok inviting her to have dinner together. Soan then came to Sangwok's house. Sangwok and Soan then ate pasta together. After Soan left, Kang Yun came and Sangwok told Kak Yun that he had just eaten together with Soan. Sangwok also said that he would try to be more active to get closer to Soan. After that, in his room Kang Yun felt strange about himself, because Kang Yun even felt jealous and angry when he found out that Sangwok would approach Soan. The next morning Kang Yun saw Sangwok and Soan together, and laughed together while talking about the contents of the novel they were reading. Sangwok could even memorize some sentences in the novel to attract the attention of Soan, so he could make Soan laugh. Kang Yun, who saw it, was very annoyed, especially when Soan called Sangwok as Oppa. In the evening Minji, who had just finished working, She saw a black shadow passing in front of her and it turned out that the witch was bothering her. Minji then screamed hysterically and immediately contacted Soan. Soan, who was in a hurry to meet Minji, accidentally bumped into Kang Yun, and did not realize that at that time her cell phone fell. Soan then told Kang Yun that the witch was in the office, and when she arrived at the office, Soan saw Minji, who was very scared. Minji then told Soan that the witch went towards the warehouse. Then Soan immediately entered the warehouse, and while in the warehouse suddenly the door closed itself and locked from the outside. Soan was very scared in the building, but fortunately at that time Kang Yun managed to find her and immediately took Soan to the dormitory. There Soan expressed her gratitude to Kang Yun. At midnight suddenly Soan woke up. Soan then looked at Kang Yun's face, who was asleep next to him. Soan then touched Kang Yun's face, which made Kang Yun wake up. They then looked at each other and after that suddenly Soan kissed Kang Yun. The next day when she met Kang Yun again, Soan pretended that she didn't kiss Kang Yun. To cover up her lie, Soan then admitted that she was often delirious and had sleepwalking disease and always did strange things. After that Sangwok then confided in Kang Yun about Soan. Sangwok said that it seems like Soan likes someone because it looks like Soan often expresses his love for someone who knows who, but when Sangwok serves him, Soan avoids him. Kang Yun then advised Sangwok and said that women don't like aggressive men. Kang Yun then added that Sangwok should not overdo it when approaching a woman. Long story short, we were shown a woman who came to the resort. The woman immediately hugged Kang Yun and the woman was named Nuri. Nuri said that she really missed Kang Yun, but at that time across the street Nuri's action of hugging Kang Yun was seen by Soan, and it seemed that Soan was very jealous. Kang Yun then took Nuri to a cafe. There Kang Yun asked Nuri what her purpose was to meet Kang Yun. Nuri then replied that she just wanted to rest in the resort while preparing to write her next work. Nuri then said that Nuri really missed Kang Yun, and at that time suddenly Nuri's fans came and they asked Nuri for an autograph. Nuri is a famous novelist. At that time Nuri's fans asked Nuri whether Kang Yun was her boyfriend or not. Kang Yun then replied that Nuri was not his girlfriend. Hearing that, Nuri then told her fans that Kang Yun was the inspiration for each of her novels, and Nuri really needed Kang Yun to be the main character in her latest novel. Hearing Nuri's babbling like that, Kang Yun was annoyed and immediately left Nuri just like that. Nuri then followed him and tried to hold Kang Yun from leaving. Kang Yun then asked Nuri not to interfere with his life anymore. Kang Yun also emphasized that he really hated Nuri. Seeing Kang Yun, who was very angry, instead of being afraid, Nuri said that she really loved Kang Yun. Kang Yun, who didn't care, then immediately left Nuri. Kang Yun then pensive alone at his office desk, but at that time suddenly came Soan, who brought him bread and milk. Soan then asked Kang Yun to eat it because Soan knew that Kang Yun not had breakfast this morning. Soan then asked Kang Yun who the woman was who hugged Kang Yun earlier. Kang Yun then told Soan that the woman who hugged him earlier was just a friend. Hearing that, then Soan did not believe it and said that it was all impossible, because earlier Soan saw the woman hugging Kang Yun very tightly and it was very unlikely if Kang Yun and Nuri did not have a relationship. At that time Kang Yun could only remain silent. When returning from work, Kang Yun and Soan accidentally met Sangwok. Sangwok then invited them to have dinner together. At that time suddenly Nuri came. Seeing the arrival of the woman, Kang Yun immediately left there. But at that time Nuri continued to follow Kang Yun. As a result, Soan and Sangwok had dinner together. There, Sangwok told Soan that Nuri was Kang Yun's ex-girlfriend. Sangwok then told her that they always broke up for 6 months. Sangwok also added that Nuri's love for Kang Yun was fake because it turned out that Nuri only used Kang Yun, but Kang Yun didn't realize this and it seemed that Kang Yun really loved Nuri. Hearing this fact, Soan was shocked and unbelieved, and at that time surprisingly Sangwok expressed his love for Soan, but Soan could not accept the love of Sangwok because Soan did not want to date her coworker and was worried about disappointing Sangwok. Soan then invited Sangwok to just be friends. The story then flashes back to a few hours earlier. At that time Sangwok heard the conversation between Soan and Minji, who told about Soan who had kissed Kang Yun. Hearing this fact, then Sangwok felt empty and realized that even though he loved Soan wholeheartedly, Soan's heart was not for him but for his own friend. Sangwok was willing to let go of Soan to live with his friend, and was willing to bury his love deeply in order to see Soan and Kang Yun live happily. And at this time the reason Sangwok expressed his love, even though he already realized that he knew if he would be rejected, Sangwok just wanted to feel relieved and did not expect more. When arriving home, Sangwok asked Kang Yun how his relationship with Nuri was. Kang Yun then said that they had broken up and did not want to get back together. Sangwok then asked again whether Kang Yun had found someone who Kang Yun loved at this time. Kangyan just fell silent and did not answer him. After Sangwok slept, Nuri then contacted Kangyan continuously, although Kangyan was a little annoyed and picked up the phone. At that time a restaurant employee told Kangyan that Nuri was currently drunk. Although Kangyan really hated Nuri, Kangyan was forced to take Nuri home. And after taking Nuri home, Nuri woke up and forbade Kangyan to leave. Nuri then said that she was a bad woman, very selfish and annoying, but she couldn't live without Kangyan. Nuri really needed Kangyan's presence as inspiration for her novel. Nuri is always like that. Every time Nuri wants to get back with Kangyan, and every time Nuri finishes her novel Nuri will feel bored with Kangyan, and will break their relationship, and that's the story of how Nuri and Kangyan always broke up. Back to the present, at this time Kangyan can finally be firm against Nuri. Kangyan then said that at this time Kangyan no longer likes Nuri. Kangyan also emphasized that he currently likes other women and will not return to Nuri. In another place, it shows Young who is receiving a call from her mother to ask for money, feeling very upset because her mother always asks her for money without thinking if Young also has the needs of life. At that time Soan came to her and brought Young food. Young then told about her mother to Soan, who always asked for money every time Young was paid. Even though Young had a lot of needs, Soan then advised Young to remain patient with her mother. The next day, Soan asked Kangyan whether Kangyan was back with his ex or not. Soan said that Sangwok had told her that Kangyan's ex was a famous novelist. Soan also said that she also really wanted to become a famous writer, but for various reasons she could not realize her dream. Soan then asked and wanted to know how she could become a writer. Kangyan only answered Soan's question sarcastically. At that time Minji came with Nuri. Minji told them that Nuri would help them to promote an event that the resort would hold. At lunchtime Minji asked Soan how about her mission to find the witch. Soan then told Minji that she had tried to find her but there were no results. At that time Nuri joined them at their table. Nuri then asked how old Soan was now. After learning that Soan was 20 years old, Nuri even said that Soan was still a baby. It made Soan very upset. Soan then said that even though she looked like a baby but she was an adult. The next day, the witch was seen approaching Young. The witch asked Young to buy candy from her. If she bought it, the witch would grant all Young's requests, but she did not want to buy it. The witch said that she already knew that Young wanted her mother to disappear forever. The witch continued to persuade Young that she would buy candy from the woman. Young still did not want to do it and she then left the witch. The witch then recited her spell and was about to curse Young, but at that moment suddenly the witch cancelled her spell. In a different place, Sangwok was seen coming to the library because he knew that Soan must be there. Sangwok then told Soan the reason he liked her because Soan couldn't lie. Soan then said that she would lie about something funny. Soan then told him that she was cursed and couldn't fall in love with anyone. Soan then said that she came to the resort to destroy her curse. If the curse was lifted, maybe Soan could fall in love again. Hearing this, Sangwok felt that he had regained hope to approach Soan. Then Sangwok said that he would help Soan to get rid of her curse. Sangwok also said that whatever Soan's appearance would be, Sangwok would be by her side. Hearing Sangwok's words, Soan thought what Sangwok had just said was a lie. In the evening Minji invited Soan and Nuri to drink together. Nuri asked Soan whether Soan had read her workbook or not. Soan then replied of course Soan had read it. Soan then mocked Nuri and said without Kangyan it seemed that Nuri could not write a single word and her writing was very boring. Hearing the insult from Soan suddenly Nuri was very upset, and immediately grabbed Soan's hair until finally the two of them had a big fight. Minji then took them out. Minji then contacted Sangwok and Kangyan to come there. After they got there Sangwok then drove Soan home and treated her wounds. Soan then told Sangwok that she felt very happy because there were already people who wanted to treat her wounds. Soan felt that she was like a person who was being loved sincerely. Hearing this, Sangwok was about to kiss Soan, but at that moment Young suddenly entered and thwarted the action of Sangwok. Young then told Soan that she met the witch earlier who forced her to buy candy. Soan was very surprised and immediately asked what happened next. Not yet Young answered. Suddenly Soan contacted Soan. They then met Soan who was drunk. Soan said that he had just met a woman who sold gum. Soan then told her that the old woman forced him to buy one gum from her in exchange for the old woman to grant all requests from Soan. Soan then said that he had bought the gum with the request that Soan wanted to be loved by Young. The old woman then read the spell, but what happened was that Soan suddenly fainted and Soan no longer knew what happened next. Soan then looked for the woman in question. Soan thought the old woman must not have gone too far. So long searching finally Soan managed to find the old woman. and it was true that the old woman was the witch Soan had been looking for all this time. The witch then asked who Soan was. Soan then asked the witch to restore her life that she had destroyed. The witch looked scared. Kang Yun suddenly came and stopped Soan's rudeness towards the witch. Soan then told Kang Yun that the old woman who was in front of them was the witch that Soan had been looking for. They then took the witch to the doctor. After examining the witch's condition, the doctor then said that the witch had Alzheimer's disease and her condition was very severe. The doctor then added that the witch's memory would soon fade and would lose her memory forever. Hearing this, Soan did not believe it. Soan was very sure that the witch had lied. At that time the nurse then took the witch out and told her to take a urine test. The witch then asked permission to go to the toilet for a while. In the toilet the witch looked into a mirror, then she laughed and left. Soan then looked for her in the toilet, but unfortunately she didn't find her. Soan felt very upset because she had been tired of looking for the witch all her life, but now after she managed to meet the witch it disappeared again. Kang Yun then calmed Soan and said that they would definitely find her again. The next day at Minji's office meeting with the whole team, at that time Nuri suggested that the resort make a neutral concept event with a model that must wear the concept of a female cyber warrior, and a few days later at the resort held a neutral concept event. Soan felt very embarrassed and upset because she was told to wear a costume with the concept of a female cyber warrior, but the man who saw it praised Soan very beautiful. Nuri who saw it was very satisfied and happy because she had succeeded in humiliating Soan. Nuri then remembered the night she fought with Soan, when Nuri was picked up by Kang Yun, and Kang Yun said that he was no longer a fool who could be used by Nuri just like that. Nuri then asked if Kang Yun liked Soan or not, and Kang Yun loudly said that he really loved Soan, and that was the reason why Nuri played a prank on Soan at that time. After the event was over, in the evening, Soan accidentally saw the existence of the witch. Soan then followed her, when suddenly a car drove very fast and was about to hit Soan, but fortunately Kang Yun managed to save Soan. While the witch he suddenly fell in the middle of the road. They then took the witch to the hospital. The story then flashes back to when the witch was 7 years old. Her stepmother locked her in a warehouse and did not take care of her like humans in general. The witch was very angry because her stepmother did not take good care of her. Because of heartache and great anger, somehow the witch then got the power to be able to curse someone. The witch then cursed her stepmother's biological child. She also bewitched her stepmother to disappear from this world forever. The witch then grew up with pain and anger, and did not know that everyone she cursed would turn back to herself. Back to the present, her memories began to disappear one by one. The witch was in great pain because now she felt what it was like to be cursed. Soan then said that she had felt it for 20 years. Soan then begged for the curse to end. The witch then asked if when Soan's curse ended Kang Yun could still love Soan or not. If Soan's face looked 40 years old, the witch then said she didn't know what kind of curse Soan would end up with, whether Soan would become a 20-year-old woman or a 40-year-old woman. Outside the room it turned out that Kang Yun was listening to all the talks between Soan and the witch. After that Kang Yun then left the room. While outside Kang Yun accidentally met Nuri. Nuri then invited Kang Yun to go home together, but Kang Yun didn't want to because Kang Yun knew that Nuri only needed him for his work. Long story short, the next day, Soan gave his resignation letter to Minji, and would stop working at the resort because the witch said that Soan might be 40 years old after his curse ended, and if it was true that Soan would be 40 years old then Soan did not want to meet the people he currently knew, because Soan did not want to feel embarrassed. Minji then said that she didn't care if Soan was 20 years old or 40 years old. Minji only asked Soan to meet her directly and become her friend after Soan's curse ended. After that, Soan then said goodbye to Eyoung and Sion. It turns out that now the two of them are dating. As Soan said, there is no friendship between men and women without the bond of love. And when the evening came, Soan spent her time with her friends before Soan went to see the witch to remove the curse. After the photo together Soan then left them all. At that time Kang Yun suddenly stopped Soan's steps. Kang Yun then said that he would miss Soan. Kang Yun then said that he didn't care what Soan looked like. Kang Yun begged Soan to come back when the curse was gone. After that the magician began to recite the spell to remove the curse of Soan, and when suddenly all the candles there were extinguished. A few days later Kang Yun and Sanwok were seen going to the library. They then read the book that Soan always read. At that time Sanwok asked Kang Yun whether Soan contacted Kang Yun or not. Kang Yun replied that he did not get news from Soan. They really wanted to know the news from Soan whether Soan was okay or not. Long story short, one day Kang Yun got a call from an unknown number. He thought it was from Soan. Kang Yun then remembered Soan's words that she wanted to become a famous writer. At that moment Kang Yun remembered about the book entitled My 2020 by Soan. Then Kang Yun went to a library. Kang Yun then asked the library guard about a writer named Soan, but they all turned out to have never met the writer named Soan, because it turned out that the writer never showed his face. The woman then said that she had heard that there was a place where the writer named Soan usually wrote for her work. Then Kang Yun immediately went to the place in question, and there Kang Yun was happy because he managed to meet Soan again. Kang Yun, who missed her very much, then immediately hugged Soan. Soan then told Kang Yun that now she was 21 years old, and it turned out that when releasing her curse the witch asked her to remember the happiest moments in Soan's life, and right at 12 o'clock at night suddenly the candle went out, and at that time the curse had disappeared, and the witch also disappeared forever. Hearing this Kang Yun felt very happy, but he also felt a little disappointed with Soan because Soan did not immediately contact him when the curse had disappeared. Kang Yun then said whatever Soan looks like now Kang Yun will always love her. After that suddenly there was a man who offered flowers. Kang Yun and Soan chose to run away from the flower seller because they were afraid of being cursed again, and the movie ended closed with Sang Wok who met a woman in the library. Meanwhile Kang Yun always accompanied Soan's days to write her book, and one day Kang Yun said that he really loved Soan, and would love Soan forever. And the Korean drama of My 2020 is finished. Thank you for watching and hopefully entertained. Kamsahamnida.